Papua New Guinea has been awarded the right to join the NRL in the 2028 competition after months of negotiations. The Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, his PNG counterpart James Marape and NRL boss Peter V'landys made the announcement a short time ago in Sydney. Our Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts was at the news conference and he joins us now from Sydney. So Stephen, how is this deal going to work?
Look, this deal is going to be unspooling for the next few years, but a few things are clear. The first is that PNG will get its own NRL team, and that team will start in the competition in 2028, so still in a few years' time. That team will also be based in Port Moresby. Now, you might be aware there was a bit of speculation that perhaps it would be based in North Queensland instead. That is not the case under this agreement that's been reached between the NRL, between Australia and Papua New Guinea. The team will be based in a compound in Port Moresby, in the capital, and the home games will also be played in the capital. This is going to be an enormously and potentially transformative development for Papua New Guinea, which has enormous raw enthusiasm for the game of NRL. So the fact they're now getting their own team is not only going to have big implications for the NRL and for the league, but also really big implications for PNG and for the capital, Port Moresby, as well. Now, the only reason that this is happening is because the Australian government is stumping up money. In this case, $600 million, although only $480 million of that is new money. The rest is taken from existing budgets. And that is the money that will be split between the NRL, between the licensing fees paid to other teams, and also ploughed into development inside Papua New Guinea. And this $600 million over a decade is what's going to make this team a viable concern, and the hope is that it will not only ensure that the team is financially stable, but it will also ensure that it's able to draw the talent that it needs to ensure that it can compete at the very top level. So this is a big deal. It's a very big deal for the NRL, probably the most expensive and ambitious expansion in its history since its formation in 1998. And of course, it's also a very big deal for Papua New Guinea, which believes that this announcement, the fact that the NRL, the beloved game, the national sport, is now officially coming to the country, is going to have a real impact on the ground.
It is, of course, not all about the sport, though, Stephen. What security commitment has PNG made as part of this agreement?
Yeah, this is important because, yes, this is primarily about sport, but the Australian government isn't stumping up $600 million over a decade simply out of the goodness of the heart or because it shares a love of NRL with the government of PNG. There is undeniably a strategic element to this. Now, neither Anthony Albanese or James Marape were keen to get into this during the press conference, but the ABC has been told that there is a parallel agreement that has been signed between both countries on strategic issues. That parallel agreement is in some ways closely tied to a bilateral security agreement that entered into force today as well, that was actually signed 1 year ago or so between the two countries. Now, what that agreement says exactly is not being made public. The ABC's been told that it makes a very clear reference to the NRL deal resting on the fact that Australia is Papua New Guinea's security partner of choice, and there is a clear understanding, at least on the Australian side, that if Papua New Guinea were to do anything to endanger that, such as, for the sake of argument, inviting China in to sign a security deal or to set up a policing presence in the country, then that would immediately essentially break that commitment to strategic trust. And Australia, under the terms of the agreement, has the ability essentially to pull the plug then on the NRL team and the funding that comes with that, which would see most likely the entire enterprise collapse. So Australia believes, rightly or wrongly, that it has got an awful amount of leverage here. We don't know exactly what's in this agreement, but Australia sees it as a pretty clear-cut commitment to essentially make sure that it has to give a green light to any other countries coming into the security space. And you'd imagine, even if the government isn't making this explicit, that Australia would be very quick to use that power to potentially, if it wanted to, pull the trigger, pull the NRL team if, for example, Papua New Guinea were to do something like striking a security deal with China. So there is a clear strategic element to this agreement as well. Yes, it's primarily about sport, but there is also a very healthy dash of realpolitik and strategic self-interest in this agreement too.
And Stephen, finally, what's the reception likely to be in PNG?
Look, I think it'll be overwhelmingly positive. The ABC over the last little while has been speaking to people on the ground in Port Moresby, and most people say that they're really excited by the prospect. PNG really is a national obsession inside Papua New Guinea, and there's enormous enthusiasm for it there. And the fact that PNG has now got its own team is something that's already generating quite a lot of excitement on the ground. That doesn't mean it's unalloyed enthusiasm in every quarter. There are already some people the ABC has spoken to on the ground who say, yes, they like the idea of a PNG NRL team, but they do wonder whether all of this money could be better spent on things like critical health and education services, both of which are in a state of disrepair in Port Moresby and across PNG. And also the fact that there's such a strong strategic element to this, the fact that the government is tying it quite clearly to strategic imperatives, does risk generating a bit of cynicism on the ground in Papua New Guinea. But I also don't want to overstate it. I think for most people in Papua New Guinea, their main reaction will probably be one of great enthusiasm that this is happening. They've got their own team to barrack for, and that's something that will be a really, really big deal inside all of Papua New Guinea.
Stephen Jedgetts there, thank you so much.